So there'll be a bunch more coming in the next couple of weeks, but Ty's the first one live on your screen. So thanks for being here, Ty.
What's up, guys? Thanks for joining.
Cool. So I just want to start kind of at the beginning. I've been in Myers for a long time, but you've been in Myers longer than I have in South Lake Tahoe. Tell us about learning to ski. Where'd you learn to ski around here?
Cool. Around here, I've been living in South Lake since I was like 8 years old. Grew up in the Tahoe area my whole life. I went to the dark side for some people and started telly skiing when I was 10, and I learned how to telly ski up at Sierra at Tahoe. And basically that's been my home resort ever since, and that in the backcountry around here, and this greater Sierra Nevada range, that's what I'm all about. So that's kind of what shaped me as a skier.
And I think the story for like how you started at telly is kind of interesting. Like, at 10, essentially, you started to go into the backcountry. Tell us a little bit more about that, if you could.
Yeah, dude. So basically back in the day, before all these fancy new AT setups started coming out, freeheel gear was like the way to get into the backcountry for skiers. And my dad and my grandpa were huge inspirations for me when it came to that. They were both telly skiers. My dad had a hard time finding the right size boots for me because back in the day they didn't make kid size boots. And I started out on like the smallest pair of lace up leather boots that were ladies size, and they kind of fit with 2 pairs of socks on. And I had cable bindings, super old school setup on what was then like shape skis, like before twin tips and everything. And I just remember like my first time going up to Sierra, and like I was already a pretty proficient alpine skier as a little kid. And I just chased my dad around the resort. He made me stay on the bunny hill, so I was all self-conscious about that for the first half of the day, just learning how to drop my knee in telly. And then by the end of the day, like it's burnt in my memory forever. Like I was skiing some black diamonds with like what felt like shoulder deep powder because I was so short back in the day. But I was skiing POW by the end of the day on tellies, and I never looked back. And now I'm kind of made somewhat of a semi-pro career out of being a telly skier, and I'm 33 and still enjoying the same terrain that I was, when I was 10. So that's kind of where it all started.
I mean, when my friends who telly, like, discuss watching you telly, the vast majority of them don't telly as well or in the same style really as you. How would and I imagine that was true for your granddad and your dad, right? Like they were more what I would generally consider probably traditional telliers, but like when did you sort of like go to the maybe next level?
So terrain parks were kind of like the big nudge that pushed me towards like freestyle skiing on freeheel gear. I mean, I didn't really have that structured of like a skiing background. Like I wasn't on Mighty Mites, I wasn't on any teams until I got to the Heavenly Foundation. It was like their first year with the free ride program for the high school, and I was a freshman, and that was like the only team on South Lake that was like free ride specific. So that's when I started to get a little more structured. And I was basically a park rat all the way like through high school, and then I went on a couple trips because I started getting sponsored, did all the like USASA competitions around here as a kid. And I went on some trips to Europe to film with the Unparalleled movies. Back in the day, they were like a 16 millimeter film out of North Lake Tahoe, but they were like the premier freeheel guys. And I was lucky enough to like start filming with them and going on trips. And I really started to get intrigued by the backcountry because I went on these bigger trips and was just way out of my element and wasn't that comfortable being on steeper terrain. And like I said, I didn't have that kind of structured background as most kids like in this area do, who are fortunate to get on the teams. But Yeah, I guess when I started riding with like all my alpine buddies and trying to do the same tricks, that's when, it kind of kicked up another level. I was going through puberty as like a high schooler and like getting stronger and like played soccer and like went to the gym and was pretty athletic. So, I took it a little more seriously. And then, yeah, after high school, kind of ran, sorry, but yeah, after high school, to like mountain competitions and, that's got like an ebb and flow and you really got to kind of play the game and learn how to do that. And it's like a hard lesson sometimes. It's never like the way you want it to go with competitions, but if you keep being persistent, like you get on the podium. And that's pretty much how I really started to get into big mountain. So I guess around like 2021, that's when it started to click for me.
Where in there did you like start to, or how did you like acquire some avalanche education and that sort of stuff? Like when did you maybe realize that was important, or when did you start learning that?
Right. So pretty much from the start when I got into the backcountry at like a really young age. Um, my grandpa was a pro patroller for Kirkwood. He was like head of patrol back in the day, and Sierra and Heavenly. He was really into like he was pretty influential with like developing like the avalanche control routes out at Kirkwood, and um, he was always like head on a swivel when we were out there, and he taught me a lot of those like basic things that you need to know before you go out there. Not that like me being a 10-year-old is gonna have to use a transceiver that just beeps and like one of those old school order boxes to find my grandpa, but he like started to instill that as like, hey, this is your seatbelt, like you get in a car, you put a seatbelt on. So from a really young age, like I started to get a grasp of it, but I'd say like senior year, I took area level 1 and through college, like kind of focused some of my school projects on like avalanche education and awareness. And then obviously like I've partnered up with you guys in the past and like kind of like worked on those fun events for like our movie premieres and, education as well. So the whole community thing for like avalanche education for me kind of blossomed like in college, so it's a different route that some people might not have worked with, like putting on fundraisers for your guys' stuff and, being kind of in a spotlight for avalanche safety, I guess. But it's been a cool path for me. I wouldn't say like I'm anywhere near like a Avi forecaster or anything like that. There's still a lot of things that I have to learn. And sometimes it's through trial and error, but, just refreshing myself, it's really key, I guess.
Okay, a really important question here, Ty.
Yeah.
Who taught your level 1?
Oh, shoot. Brett Hackett. And I think you did.
And me.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
that was back, man, it's been a long time.
it's been a long time. Let's not do the math, but yeah, I remember it was me, Brett, and I taught that. I remember
Yeah,
that.
college.
Yep, exactly. Cool. Give me a couple fun, adventurous, crazy backcountry stories.
Hmm.
I mean, well, first off, I mean, these days when you go into the backcountry, I think you do all the things. I've run into you on top of several peaks in the backcountry when I'm out working for the Avalanche Center. But I think a lot of times for some of the bigger terrain, you do like access stuff out in the greater Blue Lake zone. I don't want to give away any secrets, but I don't think that's a secret.
Yeah. No. So I mean, like every time's an experience, right? Like the more extended you get yourself, the more consequential things can get, right? Like you're at a resort, there's ski patrol there, there's avalanche control work being done, skier compaction. You step out to the side country, patrol still might come and be able to pick you up. And then, I guess the next step would be like touring out the backyard and, being out of cell phone service. And then, well, yeah, like you said, like I've been doing a lot of sled access stuff recently. And it's just wild what like the new machines can get you to. It's insane. Like what it's come from like versus 10 years ago, like the hill climbs that you can do. It's just it's insane, like the access you can get. But I guess, yeah, that's like that, and like heli skiing like can be the pinnacle of like that danger and exposure level, right? So every time that I'm going out there on a sled with my friends, I'm definitely trying to like reel it back and, you know, go 60 to 70% throttle, you know, whether it's skiing or access through the sled or, you know, terrain selection, because it's no joke out there. Like I have friends who have gotten hurt, and, you know, luckily, like I really haven't been part of a rescue scenario, and hopefully that continues for me. But all these things are always in the back of my mind. You know, I think some of the kind of more tiptoey days are like the sort of 8-inch to 12-inch refresher POW days, you know, like that storm slab. Though that I did have a close call this year with one of those, and was luckily I had a good escape route planned out for like my line choice. And yeah, I kicked loose like a decent little D1 R1 slab that could have swept me off a cliff. I could have got hurt. But you know, it just, I guess for me, like those days are ones where I got to take a pause and be like, all right, I'm going to step back, you know, like really assess what's going on here. And, you know, that was probably out of what, like the 20 years of me going in the backcountry, like the biggest close call was this year. So, you know, I like to think that I'm trying to be as cautious, as safe as I can, but with other goals in mind, like with filming for like what I do as a pro skier, to like, you know, other line choices, that stuff also weighs in. And so you got to really balance all that. And yeah, I'm just glad I walked away from that one. And, you know, it's a learning lesson for sure. But that was probably one of like the crazier days I had this year, I guess.
There's
So
no, that's a good story, and there's no question. There's like a tension between like, you know, getting the shot, getting the line, getting it on film, and like, you know, being safe. Like it's like a bit of an ugly truth, but there's tension there.
yeah, yeah, and I don't know if you can actually quite be safe, like with in regards to like avalanche safety, you know, because you're always like putting yourself at risk going out in that terrain, like when it boils down to it, really, you know. But yeah, that was a big wake up call for me. Other than that, like, you know, I'm doing a lot of ski cuts, like digging pits. And I guess the lucky thing for my situation is that I am out there constantly, kind of like you, Reichel, like assessing the snowpack and seeing what it does day after day, and like thinking about it a little more critically than somebody who might not have as many days in the backcountry as you or I, you know, like it's like a weekend kind of thing. And like a lot can change during the week, you know, with like the sun and just being in the Sierras, it's still really dynamic, as you know.
Yeah, awesome. So I want to make a little bit of a segue here, super subtle by myself, but so you know, there's seasons. In the winter, you know, I know that you're on the snow almost all the time. And but in the summer, you know, like you got to make a living, do other things. You know, I believe you work for the trail crew. Is that right? For LTBMU? Is that what's your technical job there
Yeah,
for the
so
Forest Service in Tahoe?
yeah, so I work for the U.S. Forest Service, the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit, and yeah, I'm a crew lead for the trail crew, and we work in the engineering department. And recently, I've been assisting with wildland fire responses. So, mocking up a short crew to go put out lightning strikes when, you know, it's way back there in the backcountry. So, and we've been getting called out to big fires too. So there's a crazy demand there right now, especially like with what we've seen with like human caused climate change, let's be real, and the huge droughts that we've been having. And it's just, I've never seen anything like it. And I've been doing fire for quite a long time now, I guess like 6 or 7 years. And yeah, the past 2 years, like just, it's insane, the total acreage, especially here in California. So we do
Yeah.
everything. It's it's a tough job. I'm not gonna lie, but it's really cool. You know, it's rewarding on the trail aspect, doing engineering projects from like bridge building to we're building a boardwalk, or even building, you know, like new trail construction and doing rock work like that. And then you got the other side with the fire stuff, and then working tons of overtime and staffing because like all the main fire crews are going out to these really large incidents, and they need my crew to stay here and cover the basin and put out the little lightning strikes. And you know, when the CAW rolled through, yeah, that was a crazy thing, just prepping for that, and then yeah, being part of the crew, and then also having to evacuate. And yeah,
So yeah, let me pause you for that. Pause you there for 1 second. So you were, fighting the Caldor fire here locally, right? And then, but you're also dealing with some like pretty significant like fam stress.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So yeah, for those who don't know me and my family, my awesome wife Savannah and I just had our daughter Lena, and she was born totally safe, perfect, and sound here at home in Tahoe. But the last month of Savannah's pregnancy was really scary because like the Caldor was coming down on us. I was working full time, like prepping for the fire to come, essentially, and yeah, it basically boiled down to um, Savannah had, you know, some signs of early pregnancy, and pretty much it was like the stress and like really bad air quality. And so we got out of here just pretty much right before the fire came in through Myers and South Lake. And yeah, I decided to go with her and support her because family's first, obviously. And yeah, we went down to Santa Rosa and hung out in wine country and had some really good friends that harbored us. And luckily the fire crews were able to put out most of the fire on this end of the Caldor, and we came back and had a perfect little girl. So here I am, taking time off, spending it with my family, and yeah, learning how to be a dad.
I mean, all of us in the South Shore who, went through that evacuation process, there was some level of stress, but like, I just, when I was feeling sorry for myself about my own little stress, I was thinking like, my gosh, if like, my wife were about to have a baby and we're dealing with this evacuation stress, that would just like, boom.
Yeah.
Respect for handling that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, and like really, like I can't complain at all. I just feel bad for everybody in Grizzly Flats area and
Wow.
people who lost their homes and businesses, and like you also got to feel sorry for like the forest too. Like there was huge old growth trees and just cool terrain out there, and it's just gnarly. It just adds another thing that you have to be prepared for living in the mountains, and it just it, I went through the Angora burn and got evacuated from that and had friends who lost their houses during that, and I've seen how it is, and and I've fought fires too, so it's just wild. It's crazy, and mad respect to everybody who helps out on all fronts, whether it's putting out the fire or helping organize the incident. You got to have like all gears firing for that kind of work. So it's cool though, man. I'm just stoked. Like it's kind of winding down, and we're looking forward to a good season again.
Do you have, this is a bit of an impossible to answer question, but I'm going to put you on the spot and ask anyway. Like,
Yeah.
Having your experience with the terrain that in the greater Tahoe area that burned at varying levels of severity, like, what are your thoughts on like, when we're allowed to return there in the winter and ski, like what are your thoughts on like things that might be going through your head that are, new because of the fire that's been on that land? I mean, we'll have all the same avalanche concerns we've had in the past, but there's, I think, some additional changes to keep in mind.
For sure. Hold on 1 second. My husky is losing his mind being outside by himself. What's up, man? Say hi to IG. Sorry.
It's all good.
He's going nuts. He's annoying me. So yeah, to answer your question, skiing in the burn area this year is going to be, I'd almost go out on a limb and say it's a no-go, just because of how severely damaged our timber stand just got a beating. Like, I mean, there's pockets of really high severity, which is like intense fire that crippled a lot of trees. And I know there's a couple places out there that like I've skied in the past that are kind of nook and cranny, low angle tree spots that I really love. But now, like, it's going to be really sketchy. Honestly, like with what we saw out in the Angora burn area, there was hazard trees falling down year round 10 years later, you know? So like not only just avalanche concerns, but a snag coming down on you is like a really big issue. Obviously, like with forest closures and, you know, specific ones to burn areas, like that's no joke stuff. Like they have full on response teams that go through and assess what the damage is to the forest, and like they call them values at risk, and they assess what the VARs are. And I mean, like you'll see like in huge burn scars of flash flood will come through and wipe out communities and kill people. It's a really gnarly thing. So with that being said, I don't know the severity. I haven't been out there boots on the ground myself, but I personally am probably going to avoid most of those places at least for a year. And then you got to think about when the trees do fall down, they create like a jack straw, you know, and trees stack up and you got all this timber, and it might not be the same type of skiing as you thought it used to be.
Yeah.
Not saying the whole area is going to be like that, but there are things to think about, you know. And then, like you said, like what was a shaded aspect now gets a lot more sun on it. Like, you know, you're not going to be able to go off like historical data that you might have from skiing that area time after time, because as we know, that's how you gain like a wealth of knowledge when it comes to navigating terrain in the backcountry safely, is like going to the same spot and recognizing what the snowpack's doing. And you know, like I said, like my grandpa's been around so long, he would be like, oh yeah, back in '83, you know, that's when the 11s ripped out on trimmers or something like that, you know. So it's just time, you know, history.
Yeah,
So
I think you make a good point there that, you know, again, who knows when we're going to be allowed back into those areas, but some of them might have changed, you know, so like that familiarity we have with the tree cover and maybe the susceptibility to wind slab formation in certain areas, you know, might be different because the trees are, you know, not as dense or gone or whatever the case may be. So
totally.
that will require a little bit more dynamic, you know, decision making on our part when we travel in that terrain.
For sure. Yeah, but I just the hazard trees alone like get me really heads up in burn areas like that, especially in the first couple years. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's something to think about. I mean, I like the short film that I shot this year. There's a couple spots that we got clips at up there in the Echo area and near Sierra too, and I'm really curious to see what it looks like coming back in the near future. So we will
Yeah.
see.
Speaking of Sierra, like, you know, Sierra Tahoe is, I know, home mountain for you. And, you know, I've spent many glorious storm days enjoying their trees and whatnot. And it's, you know, sort of a culturally important point area, ski resort for, you know, skiers in Tahoe and the South Shore in particular, and the foothills. And they, you know, not many ski resorts have been burned significantly in fire. It's kind of a thing that hasn't happened too often in my recollection, but they
Right.
have. And I know you've been doing some work related to that. Do you want to talk about the fundraiser that you're helping put on this weekend?
Yeah, totally. So Sierra Tahoe definitely got the brunt of the Caldor fire regarding like outdoor recreation places, places of opportunity. Um, so yeah, the resort, their maintenance shack got burnt up. They lost a bunch of cats and snowmobiles, as far as I've heard, and it's looking pretty dire up there. And you know, they're, as we know, they're kind of a smaller mom and pop run resort, like a really cool local vibe. So I think the fundraiser that we're having this Saturday is definitely gonna bring the community together, for one, after like this gnarly evacuation and this whole thing that we had to deal with the Caldor. But it also all of the raffle prizes, all of the tickets sold are going to go to the Sierra Tahoe Relief Fund. And we don't know how John Rice and the resort is going to use this, but it's meant to fill holes where insurance is not going to pick things up, you know? We still don't know like what the opening day is for Sierra this year. And there's a lot of uncertainty and unknowns right now. So the idea is get everybody together. We'll have my film showing, and then my buddy Josh Dyack, he filmed with the Blank Collective. That's going to be the headliner film. And our hopes are as much money so that we can, you know, and help the resort out in any way possible and give back to, you know, the resort in general, because they give us so much every winter. Because, you know, I try to get as many POW days as I can in the backcountry, but realistically, like, you have to go to the resort, especially on gnarly days, and it's the best, like the best tree skiing around. You know, I'm really curious to see like what it's like up there after the Caldor scar. It's going to be things are changing, and we're just going to roll with the tides, I guess. But hopefully we can make something positive come out of it this Saturday at the hangar. And yeah, it'll be cool. As always, like, we're definitely still in this pandemic world, but the venue there is outdoors, and I checked it out. I feel that it's a safe venue to, you know, socially distance, yet still have a good time and see people and come together after these crazy events that we've had, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you know, kudos to you and the folks at the hangar and everybody else who's, you know, putting together that thing. I mean, it's that fundraiser. It certainly feels like, you know, there's so much desire to help out, and you know, there's a lot of uncertainty still about the damage up there, but obviously it'd be nice to keep Sierra around and keep making more memories. And, you know, your daughter and my son can enjoy skiing there as like we did when we were a little bit younger as well, and still do.
Yeah, totally. No, so it's cool, man. I mean, again, shout out to the hangar, shout out to Josh, and everybody who's involved, all the sponsors. Go on their website, go on their Instagram and check it out. It's going to be going all day. We'll have live music, huge raffle, like skis, hard goods, you know, bindings, really cool stuff. So definitely try to get people stoked. As always, it's that time of year for ski premiere season, but, you know, this has like a little added weight to it. So I'm just hoping we could all come together as a community and just vibe out and have a good time and welcome winter, you know?
It sounds pretty good. Ty, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for your work there.
Yeah.
Congrats on the daughter, and look forward to crossing paths real soon.
Yeah, Reichel. Thanks again. I had a good time.
Awesome. And thanks everyone for tuning in. There'll be more videos for the California Avalanche Workshop over October. Thanks everyone. Bye. I see one question here. I'll hit it before we sign off. The event that Ty is talking about Saturday, I think it starts at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon at the Hangar, which is a bar with a ton of outdoor space in South Lake Tahoe. So this Saturday, what is that, October?
The 9th.
What? The 9th, thanks.
Yeah, you could click on my profile too. There's info there, and then I'll just be posting throughout the week about details. So hopefully to see everybody out there.
Thanks everybody. Thanks again.
Cheers.